20 things rich kids had in the 1880s that you wanted. What made the rich kids of the 1980s so unforgettable? It wasn't just the money, it was the jaw-dropping stuff they had that the rest of us only dreamed about. From high-tech toys to designer clothes, let's rewind to the flashy, fun, and envy-filled world of growing up rich in the 80s. Basement bars. Do you remember the first time you stepped into someone's basement and felt like you'd just entered another world? In the 1980s, a basement bar wasn't just a room, it was an experience. While most of us were still watching Saturday morning cartoons in our living rooms, the rich kids had entire underground kingdoms tucked beneath their homes. You'd walk down a carpeted staircase and suddenly find yourself surrounded by faux wood paneling, neon signs that glowed like a diner in the dark, and plush sectional couches that felt oddly luxurious. There might be a mirrored wall, or even a vintage jukebox humming out REO Speedwagon. And if the parents were feeling extra fancy, a glass rack overhead and a glimmering bar lined with soda cans and plastic cups. That mini fridge wasn't just cold, it was stocked, usually with high C, root beer, and the elusive golden bottle of Sunny Delight. Some setups even had a pool table, which instantly made the basement feel like a private club for the preteen elite. In truth, these weren't just basements. They were stages for sleepover adventures, low-key rebellion, and the first tastes of independence that felt just a little bit grown up. VCRs and extensive VHS collections. Nothing captured quiet luxury in the 1980s quite like walking into a living room and spotting a full wall of VHS tapes neatly arranged beside a humming VCR. It wasn't just about watching movies. It was about owning them. For most families, renting from Blockbuster on a Friday night was the highlight of the week. But for a few lucky kids, home entertainment meant something else entirely. I remember visiting a friend whose collection included every hit from The Goonies to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, each one tucked into its original sleeve, worn from love, not rental use. His parents even had a tape rewinder that looked like a sports car, something that felt unnecessarily fancy, yet undeniably cool. The wood-paneled television, the soft whir of the tape loading, and the glow of the play light created an atmosphere that felt cinematic in its own right. That library wasn't just about movies. It was a badge of identity, a quiet display of wealth and taste. In a world before streaming, it meant freedom. Freedom to choose what you watched, when you watched, and how many times you rewound your favorite scene. London fog jackets. Back in the 1980s, there were certain kids who didn't just show up to school. They made an entrance, and nothing turned heads quite like a London fog jacket. It wasn't flashy, loud, or over-designed. No, it was subtle elegance, the kind of quiet confidence that whispered, "My parents shop where yours dream of browsing." In a sea of puffy nylon and forgettable windbreakers, the London fog stood tall, sleek, tailored, and timeless. Kids lucky enough to own one didn't just stay warm, they radiated status. It didn't matter if it was raining or snowing, walking across the blacktop in a London fog made you look like you belonged in a catalog. The tag alone, stitched boldly near the collar, was practically a social passport. Teachers noticed, classmates noticed, you noticed, and though you may have told yourself it was just a coat, deep down, you knew better. It was a symbol, a statement. And for the rest of us, huddled inside hand-me-downs or bargain bin finds, it was a reminder that some kids had a little more shine in their step. Because in the world of 1980s playground fashion, London fog wasn't just a brand, it was royalty. Guess jeans. Some kids didn't need to say a word to be noticed. They just showed up wearing Guess jeans. That little triangle stitched onto the pocket wasn't just a logo. It was a quiet trumpet blast, announcing that the wearer was in a different league. In the denim hierarchy of the 1980s, Guess didn't just sit at the top. It defined the top. While Levi's and Lee were perfectly respectable, Guess jeans had an edge. Sleeker cuts, bold washes, and that air of high-fashion mystique that set them apart. The brand understood its audience, and its advertising pulled no punches. Moody, black and white photos, smoldering stares, backdrops that looked like film sets. It didn't sell jeans, it sold a lifestyle. And in the schoolyard, that branding worked. Wearing Guess was like wearing confidence itself. The jeans weren't just about fashion, they became social currency, especially among teenagers navigating the complex code of what was in. With each flip through a teen magazine or music video, the image of Guess grew stronger. It wasn't just about looking cool, it was about belonging to something bigger, something bold, stylish, and just slightly out of reach for most. Let's be honest, did you ever secretly envy a friend for having one of these? Air Jordans. Did you ever stop and stare at someone's sneakers, knowing they were wearing something you could only dream of? In the 1980s, Air Jordans weren't just shoes, they were a statement. Released at a time when most sneakers cost $20 or $30, Jordans shattered the ceiling with a $100 price tag that felt almost unreal. But that's what made them special. They weren't designed for everyone. They were designed for the few. Tied to Michael Jordan's rise as a cultural icon, these sneakers carried more than just his name. They carried a sense of invincibility. Each new model brought a fresh design, bold colors, and that signature silhouette that made kids stop in their tracks. Sneaker culture as we know it today had roots right here, in those schoolyard showdowns where one glance at a pair of Jordans could shift the balance of cool. They weren't just shoes for playing ball, they were tools of identity. Wearing them meant you had taste, connections, and maybe even a little bit of swagger. For many, they were untouchable. But that didn't stop you from wanting them, watching them, and hoping one day you'd lace up a pair of your own. Intercom Systems. Voices once echoed softly through the walls, not in shouts, but through built-in speakers that felt like small miracles of modern living. In the 1980s, home intercom systems were more than just gadgets. They were symbols of comfort, convenience, and quiet sophistication. Found mostly in well-off suburban homes, these systems allowed families to speak from room to room without ever raising their voice. Brands like NuTone and Mirtone led the way, offering wall-mounted panels with AM/FM radios, cassette decks, and sometimes even doorbell integration. Beyond simple communication, intercoms became the backdrop to daily life. Music drifted from one room to another, and parents could call down to the basement without interrupting their chores. Some systems even connected to the front door, letting you speak to visitors before opening the lock. Installed flush into kitchen walls or hallway corners, they blended seamlessly into the decor, sometimes framed in wood grain, sometimes dressed in beige or chrome. Though technology has since passed them by, these quiet little networks represented something timeless, a home connected not by screens or devices, but by voices. They remind us of a different rhythm of life, slower, more intentional, and filled with a certain warmth you could hear in every spoken word. Swatch Watches. What was it about the 1980s that made a plastic wristwatch feel like a ticket to stardom? Swatch watches weren't just timepieces, they were tiny explosions of personality, each one louder and brighter than the last. In an era obsessed with color, pattern, and self-expression, Swatch turned something functional into something unforgettable. They came in bold neons, wild graphics, even transparent casings that let you see the gears inside. You'd see them lined up in store displays like candy for the wrist, each one daring you to be different. There was a kid in my class who wore 4 at once, every day. 1 for each wrist, 2 more climbing halfway up his forearm, and no one thought it was weird. We thought it was brilliant. You didn't just glance at a swatch. You noticed it. It ticked with attitude. Some kids coordinated them with outfits. Others mixed patterns like rebels with a cause. The more you had, the cooler you seemed, and the deeper your parents' pockets likely were. In those days, time wasn't measured by seconds. It was measured by how many people turned their heads when you walked by with a rainbow of plastic strapped to your arm. Designer backpacks. Some backpacks didn't just carry books, they carried dreams, status, and an unmistakable sense of cool. In the 1980s, designer backpacks like LL Bean and JanSport weren't simply school supplies. They were fashion statements, whispered declarations that the kid wearing them came from a household that paid attention to quality, brand, and maybe a little prestige. With crisp fabric, sturdy stitching, and zippers that moved like butter, these bags made ordinary book carriers look like relics from a forgotten era. Monogrammed initials were a common flex, elegantly stitched above the front pocket like a badge of early achievement. And the compartments? It felt like there was a pocket for everything. Pencils, planners, scientific calculators, maybe even snacks perfectly packed in Tupperware with matching lids. These backpacks had the uncanny ability to stay clean, upright, and somehow untouched by chaos. While most kids wrestled with torn straps and permanent marker stains, the lucky few strode confidently through school hallways with their gear gleaming under fluorescent lights. In a world of frayed seams and duct-taped corners, those high-end backpacks stood tall, quietly signaling that this kid wasn't just going to school. They were going somewhere, and their bag was already packed for it. Shopping at the mall. Was there ever a better feeling than stepping into a mall with a parent's promise to get what you need for school? For many kids in the 80s, back-to-school shopping meant fluorescent lights, glossy tiled floors, and stores filled with possibility. Those fortunate enough to avoid the bargain basement bins knew the difference immediately. The mall was alive, with music, movement, and the low buzz of teenage dreams coming true. Stores like Merry-Go-Round and County Seat didn't just sell clothes, they sold confidence. Foot Locker had the shoes everyone wanted, and department stores like Macy's or JCPenney felt endless, like fashion playgrounds for the upwardly mobile. And then came the statement pieces, the polos with tiny icons that carried big weight. A stitched crocodile or a little polo player wasn't just branding, it was social shorthand. It meant your wardrobe came from aisles filled with choice, not necessity. Back then, fashion wasn't fast. It was deliberate. Every piece you brought home said something about who you wanted to be, and nowhere captured that transformation quite like the mall, part marketplace, part mirror, and for the lucky few, a place where style and status met before the school year even began. Cabbage Patch Kids. Few toys in the 1980s caused more squeals, scuffles, or shopping stampedes than the legendary Cabbage Patch Kids. They weren't just dolls, they were events. With their soft sculpted faces, pudgy limbs, and yarn hair in every shade imaginable, these cherubic companions captured hearts and rattled wallets across America. Each one came born with a name, a birth certificate, and official adoption papers, transforming playtime into something oddly ceremonial. They didn't just sit on shelves, they lived in cribs, wore pajamas, and had fully accessorized wardrobes that would make any fashion catalog blush. Of course, having one was cool, but having a collection, that was upper-tier playground prestige, especially if you had a rare edition, maybe a freckled face, a dimple in the right spot, or even one with a single tooth that made it more special than the rest. The truly elite versions were whispered about like treasure maps, and the brand didn't stop at dolls. Cabbage Patch fever spread to backpacks, bed sheets, bubble bath, and breakfast cereals. It became a full-blown cultural movement, one that defined not just what kids played with, but how they felt about ownership, identity, and a very plush version of popularity. Love taking trips down memory lane? Hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss what's coming next. Big screen projection TVs. Television once felt like furniture, heavy, grounded, and central to the rhythm of everyday life. In most homes, the screen sat nestled in a wood-paneled cabinet, its glow drawing families together like a modern hearth. But for the lucky few, the 1980s introduced something that seemed almost unreal: the big screen projection TV. These colossal machines didn't just show you a movie, they immersed you in it. Framed in matching wood veneer, with a screen that spanned up to 50 inches, they stood like monuments to futuristic living. The picture wasn't perfect, often a bit fuzzy at the edges, but none of that mattered. When the projector kicked on and the room dimmed, even the imperfections felt grand. Watching anything, whether it was Star Wars on VHS or a Sunday football game, suddenly became an event. It wasn't just about size, it was about experience. It was the feeling of sitting cross-legged on carpeted floors, wide-eyed, as larger-than-life characters filled the wall. At a time when most people still twisted dials and adjusted rabbit ears, a projection TV was more than a gadget. It was a window into a world where technology met imagination and where envy flickered quietly in the glow of someone else's living room. Fridges with ice and water dispensers. Ever see a glass of water make someone jealous? In the 1980s, that wasn't just possible. It happened every time a kid pressed their cup against a shiny fridge door and out came ice. No wrestling with cracked trays, no waiting for cubes to freeze, no cloudy water from the tap. Just smooth, humming convenience. Fridges with built-in ice and water dispensers were the kitchen status symbols of the decade. Most families made do with basic models, functional, boxy, and often humming a little too loudly. But those deluxe double-door machines? They looked like something from the future, with softly lit panels, chrome handles, and that magical little alcove that quietly said, "We've made it." And it wasn't just about luxury. These fridges transformed how kids experienced something as simple as getting a drink. They added ceremony to thirst. Ice clinked into tall glasses like applause. Water flowed clean and cold, no faucet in sight. In a world still defined by manual labor in the kitchen, this was the height of domestic innovation. For many, that soft whirring sound was more than a machine at work. It was the gentle hum of 80s prosperity, poured one cube at a time. Gourmet foods and specialty condiments. Long before gourmet became a buzzword and food styling took over television, a few lucky kids in the 1980s were already living the upscale culinary dream, right in their parents' kitchens. While most families stocked pantry shelves with boxed macaroni or off-brand peanut butter, others opened their refrigerators to find a different kind of abundance. Imported juices in sleek Tetra Paks, European yogurts with names no one dared pronounce, and artisan crackers with more crunch than purpose. Even the condiments told a story. Small glass jars of Grey Poupon, quietly nestled beside Dijon vinaigrette and stone-ground spreads. This wasn't just food, it was refinement you could taste. And then came dessert. The Viennetta ice cream cake. Layers so elegantly rippled they looked sculpted by a pastry chef with a fine arts degree. It wasn't just served, it was presented, often with the kind of care usually reserved for holiday dinners or special guests. In those moments, food became more than nourishment. It became performance, identity, and aspiration. For many, it was a glimpse into a world where meals weren't rushed, but curated, where flavor hinted at sophistication, and where even a spoonful of mustard could make you feel just a little more worldly. Novelty phones. Bright plastic, blinking lights, and shapes that made no logical sense. Phones in the 1980s had a way of turning the ordinary into something unforgettable. At a glance, they looked more like toys or props from a Saturday morning cartoon. But to a child, they were something else entirely, a little piece of wonder sitting quietly on the nightstand. Novelty phones weren't just about making a call, they were about identity. Whether shaped like a sports car, a cartoon character, or a see-through piece of futuristic hardware, these phones offered a spark of imagination in an era defined by expression. The ring wasn't just a sound, it was an event. And when the lights blinked or the eyes of Garfield opened, it was as if the entire room came alive. More than a fad, these phones reflected the exuberance of the decade itself, bold, unapologetic, and willing to embrace a little absurdity for the sake of joy. Even now, tucked into thrift stores or collectors' shelves, they carry echoes of a time when design was playful, and even a simple phone call felt like an occasion. They may no longer ring, but their charm still lingers. Bright reminders of a louder, livelier kind of childhood. High-end sports equipment. Beneath the summer sun, childhood competition often revealed more than just athletic skill. It quietly exposed the gap between store-bought dreams and well-funded realities. In the 1980s, sports fields and tennis courts became stages for subtle displays of privilege, where equipment spoke as loudly as ability. While many kids carried scuffed rackets or dented aluminum bats passed down through siblings, others arrived with precision-crafted tools that looked like they'd been plucked from a pro shop catalog. Carbon fiber tennis rackets gleamed with untouched grip tape. Golf clubs, polished and monogrammed, seemed more sculpture than sport. These weren't just playthings. They were performance instruments, tailored and teched out, hinting at private lessons and club memberships behind every swing. And it wasn't just the equipment. Designer sports bags, pristine shoes with air-cushioned soles, even personalized ball markers. The details mattered. They signaled access, investment, and expectation. For kids on the sidelines, watching it all unfold, it could feel like sport was less about talent and more about timing, connections, and gear. Still, in the hum of bouncing balls and the crack of each serve, everyone played. Some with hope, others with confidence, but all within a childhood where even games had layers of meaning. Did we miss anything iconic that only the coolest kids in the 80s had? Let us know in the comments below. Roller skates. Who else made an entrance before they even said a word? At roller rinks in the 1980s, some kids didn't just arrive, they appeared, gleaming under disco lights with skates that turned heads before their wheels ever hit the floor. These weren't the beat-up rentals most of us laced up with fingers crossed. These were high-performance, high-style masterpieces that seemed custom-built for the spotlight. Glossy neon boots, dazzling glitter finishes, and wheels so smooth they barely made a sound. Every detail was deliberate: rainbow laces, flashing lights, and toe stoppers polished to perfection. And it didn't stop there. Carrying cases looked like something out of a fashion catalog, and pom-poms on the laces danced with every turn. These skates weren't just tools for gliding, they were the main attraction. Each lap around the rink felt like a victory parade. For kids who wore them, skating wasn't just a pastime, it was a statement, a rhythm, a bold flash of confidence wrapped in wheels and color. Meanwhile, the rest of us circled slowly, secretly wishing ours could glow, sparkle, or just stop squeaking. Because in that world of spinning lights and pop music, the right pair of skates could make you feel unstoppable. High-end BMX bikes. Childhood had a soundtrack, and for many in the 80s, it was the whir of BMX tires slicing through quiet suburban streets. These weren't just bikes. They were symbols of freedom, rebellion, and the kind of confidence that made you believe you could fly. With polished frames that sparkled like chrome lightning and names like Mongoose, GT, and Redline etched into the tubing, these machines weren't built for errands or casual rides. They were engineered for tricks, speed, and the spotlight. Lightweight bodies, custom grips, mag wheels, and color schemes that looked straight out of an arcade cabinet. Every detail shouted individuality. To own one of these was to own the pavement beneath your feet. Riders didn't pedal, they performed. They coasted into schoolyards and neighborhood parks like local legends, bunny-hopping curbs and carving lines across driveways with effortless swagger. And while most kids made do with standard-issue bikes, those who rode BMX masterpieces lived in motion. Each skid mark was a signature, each scratch, a chapter. In a time before smartphones and social media, these bikes told the story. Fast, fearless, and unforgettable, they didn't just carry kids, they carried the spirit of a decade defined by style, daring, and pure, unapologetic fun. Apple II, personal computer. Bright green text flickering across a black screen once felt like science fiction unfolding right on a bedroom desk. In the early 1980s, the Apple II didn't just arrive, it arrived ahead of its time. Chunky, beige, and humming with quiet confidence, it became the crown jewel of any kid lucky enough to own one. This wasn't just another piece of electronics, it was a digital frontier. From the moment it booted up, it invited exploration. Kids weren't just playing games, they were traveling the Oregon Trail, crunching code in BASIC, and saving files to floppy disks that felt like high-tech treasure maps. The machine didn't just beep and blink, it spoke to a new kind of imagination. While most classmates were still underlining textbooks, these young pioneers were learning loops, commands, and file trees. Their bedrooms became command centers, their screens portals to a world most people hadn't yet imagined. And though the graphics were blocky and the startup chime was modest, the feeling it gave off was unmistakable. The future was here, and it was glowing quietly in the corner of the room, waiting for someone curious enough to type the first line of code. Teddy Ruxpin. How could a plush bear with a cassette slot become the most futuristic thing in the room? In the toy aisles of the 1980s, where action figures, board games, and plastic playsets ruled supreme, Teddy Ruxpin quietly changed the game. At first glance, he looked like just another cuddly companion. But hidden beneath the soft fur and friendly smile was a small motorized system that moved his mouth and eyes as he spoke, syncing seamlessly with a cassette tape tucked inside his chest. What unfolded wasn't just entertainment, it was storytelling with heart. His voice was gentle, familiar, and filled with wonder, transforming bedrooms into theaters and bedtime into an experience. Yet Teddy Ruxpin wasn't for everyone. His price tag and the sheer novelty of talking toys at the time made him a luxury item. Seeing him on a friend's shelf hinted at more than good taste. It suggested a home that leaned into the future and believed in the magic of make-believe. Even after the batteries ran out and the tapes grew quiet, he left a mark. Teddy represented a moment when analog met imagination and did something beautiful. He didn't need an internet connection, just a story, a small motor, and a child willing to listen. And sometimes, that was more than enough. Grand piano in the living room. Few home items in the 1980s carried the same quiet authority as a grand piano parked elegantly in the living room. Long before streaming playlists and Bluetooth speakers filled homes with background noise, this instrument stood as both sculpture and statement, equal parts furniture and aspiration. Its graceful curves and glossy finish caught the chandelier light just right, casting reflections that danced across the floor like music itself. Whether anyone in the house actually played it seemed almost beside the point. A grand piano suggested refinement, discipline, and a touch of theatrical flair. Often propped open, just enough to suggest it was always ready, a grand piano gave off the air of casual artistry. It wasn't just for making music, it was there to be seen, a symbol of culture, class, and a certain level of economic ease. For families who owned one, it wasn't unusual for the piano to sit untouched for months, yet still be dusted weekly like fine crystal. It anchored the room, lending every gathering a sense of occasion, even if the only song played that year was a hesitant version of Fur Elise. And beyond the music, the piano reflected a deeper message, that the home valued beauty, effort, and the arts. In an era of growing consumerism and flashy trends, the grand piano stood still, timeless, proud, and unbothered by fashion. It didn't need to be played often to matter. It just needed to be there.
1980s things we can no longer do. Get ready to rediscover a world that once was and perhaps gain a fresh perspective on the conveniences and complexities of our modern lives. Number 1. Televisions, rabbit ears, and RF modulators. The evolution of technology has touched nearly every aspect of our lives, and entertainment is no exception. Cell phones have not only replaced landlines and address books, but they've also rendered long-distance calls a distant memory. Televisions, too, have undergone a dramatic transformation over the years. Remember those days of relying on rabbit ears for television reception? We'd adjust those spindly antennas, sometimes even resorting to adding aluminum foil to enhance the signal. Those with a quest for optimal reception might even have a large antenna perched on their roof, a testament to our determination to access entertainment. The younger generation may have never encountered the enigmatic RF modulator, a crucial device that connected our VCRs to our televisions. This small box enabled us to watch our favorite movies on VHS tapes, a process that now seems incredibly cumbersome compared to the seamless streaming services we enjoy today. For those who appreciate vintage technology, the RF modulator might still hold a place in their collection, a nostalgic reminder of the past. Televisions themselves were once bulky, boxy behemoths, and who could forget the age-old trick of slapping the side or top of the TV to improve the picture quality? It's a mystery why this worked, but it often did, bringing a sense of satisfaction as the fuzzy screen cleared up. Today's sleek flat-screen TVs, with their crystal-clear images and smart capabilities, are a world away from those clunky predecessors. The evolution of television technology has been nothing short of remarkable. From rabbit ears and RF modulators to high-definition displays and streaming platforms, we've come a long way in how we consume entertainment. Number 2. Smoking everywhere. The societal norms surrounding smoking have undergone a profound shift over the past few decades. Today, designated smoking areas outside of businesses are the norm, a stark contrast to the early 80s and before, when smoking was ubiquitous in public spaces. Restaurants, grocery stores, and even commercial airplanes were filled with a haze of cigarette smoke. Imagine stepping onto an airplane and being greeted by the sight of ashtrays embedded in the armrests, a testament to the prevalence of smoking at the time. It's almost inconceivable today, but even the captain could light up in the cockpit without raising eyebrows. Passengers accepted this practice, perhaps out of concern that a nicotine-deprived pilot might experience headaches or tremors at 30,000 feet. This laissez-faire attitude towards smoking reflects a vastly different understanding of its health consequences compared to our current awareness. Over time, research revealed the detrimental effects of secondhand smoke and the dangers of tobacco addiction. Public health campaigns raised awareness, leading to a gradual shift in social norms and the implementation of smoking bans in public spaces. The transition was not without its challenges, as smokers accustomed to lighting up freely had to adapt to designated smoking areas or quit altogether. The transformation in societal attitudes towards smoking demonstrates our capacity for change and our commitment to creating healthier environments. It also highlights the power of scientific research and public health initiatives in influencing social norms and behavior. The smoke-filled restaurants and airplanes of the past may seem like a distant memory, but they serve as a reminder of how far we've come in understanding the impact of smoking on our health and well-being. In the 1980s, how old were you? Do you have any memorable experiences from that time? Share your answers in the comments below. Number 14. Hostess Ding Dong Showbiz Pizza. The 1980s were a decade that offered a unique blend of indulgent treats and entertainment options, shaping the childhood memories of many. Hostess ding-dongs, those iconic chocolate-covered cakes, held a special allure. Their foil wrapping seemed to enhance their appeal, creating a sense of anticipation as we unwrapped them and savored their creamy filling and chocolatey coating. Showbiz Pizza, a popular entertainment venue, provided a haven of fun for families. The combination of arcade games, pizza, and animatronic shows created an immersive and exciting experience for children. The allure of those gold coins or tickets, earned through skillful gameplay, was undeniable. They represented a form of currency that could be exchanged for coveted prizes, adding an element of reward and accomplishment to the entertainment experience. Number 15. Erasable pens, epaulety 1800 numbers. The 1980s saw the rise of various products and marketing tactics that, while initially promising, often fell short of expectations or even resulted in unpleasant consequences. Erasable pens, touted for their ability to remove ink without leaving a trace, proved to be less effective than advertised. The ink often resisted erasure, leaving smudges or requiring excessive rubbing that could damage the paper. The epaulety, a hair removal device, gained popularity for its promise of smooth, hair-free skin. However, many women who used the epaulety discovered that its effectiveness came at a price: painful hair removal that could lead to ingrown hairs and skin irritation. The allure of speaking with their favorite cartoon characters proved irresistible for many children, leading them to dial 1800 numbers advertised during cartoon commercial breaks. These commercials often included a disclaimer advising children to seek parental permission before calling, but this warning was frequently ignored in the excitement of the moment. The result was often an unexpected and unwelcome surprise for parents when they received their phone bills, revealing charges for calls they hadn't authorized. These examples highlight the prevalence of marketing tactics and product claims that sometimes misled or even exploited consumers in the 1980s. The erasable pen's underwhelming performance, the epaulety's painful hair removal process, and the deceptive nature of 1800 number commercials targeting children all serve as cautionary tales about the importance of critical thinking and consumer awareness. While these experiences may evoke a sense of frustration or even amusement in retrospect, they also underscore the need for skepticism and careful consideration when evaluating product claims and marketing messages. The lessons learned from these 80s examples can help us become more discerning consumers and avoid falling prey to similar tactics in the future. Did this trip down memory lane spark any forgotten memories for you? Share your own experiences from the 80s and before in the comments below. If you enjoyed this nostalgic journey, be sure to explore other videos in this series, where we delve deeper into the trends, technologies, and everyday moments that defined a bygone era. Don't forget to subscribe and share Who Remembers with friends and family who might appreciate a trip down memory lane. Thank you for joining me on this nostalgic adventure. Number 3. Milk cartons with missing children. Even something as commonplace as milk has undergone a transformation over time. The variety of milk options available today, such as soy milk, almond milk, and other plant-based alternatives, was unheard of in the past. Back then, the standard half-gallon of milk typically came in a carton, not the plastic jugs we commonly see now. But what truly set those milk cartons apart was the presence of "Have you seen" main photos and information about missing children printed on their sides. It's a practice that might seem jarring today, but it reflects a different era and a unique approach to raising awareness about missing persons. Imagine children sitting down for breakfast, pouring their cereal, and being confronted with the faces of missing children on their milk cartons. It was a constant reminder of the vulnerability of children and the importance of community vigilance. While the effectiveness of this method is debatable, It undoubtedly sparked conversations and kept the issue of missing children in the public consciousness. The decision to print these photos on milk cartons was likely driven by a sense of urgency and a desire to utilize a readily available platform to reach a wide audience. In a time before widespread internet access and social media, milk cartons served as a unique and accessible channel for disseminating information. Today, we have more sophisticated and targeted methods for raising awareness about missing persons, including Amber Alerts and social media campaigns. However, the Milk Carton Initiative serves as a testament to the creative approaches employed in the past and the unwavering commitment to bringing missing children home. Number 4. Leaded gasoline, the 55 mph speed limit. The landscape of gas stations and fuel itself has undergone a significant transformation over the years. Full-service gas stations, where attendants would pump your gas, check your oil, and clean your windshield, were once commonplace. Today, self-service stations dominate the industry, a reflection of our increasingly fast-paced and independent lifestyles. But perhaps the most notable change in the fuel industry is the disappearance of leaded gasoline. Back then, fuel was considerably cheaper, and you could fill up a muscle car's tank for less than $10, a price that seems unimaginable today. Leaded gasoline was eventually phased out due to its harmful effects on human health and the environment. The introduction of unleaded gasoline was a major step forward in protecting public health and reducing air pollution. Another significant change on our roads was the abolishment of the 55 mph national speed limit on highways and interstates. This speed limit, implemented in the 1970s as a fuel-saving measure, was met with frustration by many drivers who felt it slowed down their commutes and travel times. The return to higher speed limits in the 1980s and 1990s was welcomed by many, although it also sparked debates about safety and fuel efficiency. The evolution of gas stations and fuel standards reflects our growing awareness of environmental issues and our ongoing efforts to balance convenience with sustainability. The disappearance of leaded gasoline and the changes in speed limits are just a few examples of how societal values and technological advancements have shaped the automotive industry and our driving experiences. As we continue to grapple with issues like climate change and fuel efficiency, it's likely that further changes will occur in the fuel industry and our transportation systems in the years to come. Number 5. Saturday morning cartoons TV guides. The 1980s held a special allure for children, thanks in large part to the anticipation of Saturday morning cartoons. It was a weekly ritual that brought joy and excitement to households across the nation. Kids eagerly awaited the arrival of Saturday, knowing they could spend the morning immersed in the colorful and imaginative world of their favorite animated shows. Back then, the TV guide was an indispensable tool for planning our television viewing. We'd meticulously scan its pages, circling the shows we didn't want to miss and coordinating our schedules accordingly. Not everyone had the luxury of a VCR in the early part of the decade, so if we were out and about during our favorite show's time slot, we'd miss it. A heartbreaking reality for any devoted young viewer. The anticipation and potential for disappointment were all part of the Saturday morning cartoon experience. It taught us the importance of planning and time management, albeit in a light-hearted context. The absence of readily available recording technology also fostered a sense of community. We'd discuss our favorite shows with friends at school, sharing highlights and lamenting missed episodes. It was a shared experience that brought us closer together. Today, with on-demand streaming services and DVRs, the concept of missing a show seems almost foreign to younger generations. They have the power to watch what they want, when they want, without the constraints of a rigid broadcast schedule. While this offers undeniable convenience, it also removes some of the anticipation and excitement that characterized the Saturday morning cartoon ritual of the past. The nostalgia associated with Saturday morning cartoons and TV guides reminds us of a simpler time, a time when entertainment was a shared experience and anticipation played a significant role in our enjoyment. It's a testament to the enduring power of storytelling and the ability of simple pleasures to create lasting memories. Which part of the content impressed you the most? Share it with us so we can know. Thank you. Number 11. Carpet Fresh Potpourri. The 1980s were a time when cleanliness and pleasant scents were highly valued in the home. We had our own unique methods for achieving these goals, some of which might seem quirky or even amusing by today's standards. Vacuum cleaners of that era often featured bags that would fill with dust and emit a stale odor when in use. To combat this, we'd sprinkle carpet fresh on the carpets before vacuuming, hoping to infuse the air with a more pleasant fragrance. However, these vacuum bags were prone to bursting, resulting in a messy cloud of dust and debris. Potpourri pots and warmers were ubiquitous in homes of the 80s. These decorative containers held fragrant dried flowers and spices, releasing their scents into the air. While they did add a pleasant aroma to the home, they also tended to leave a sticky, gummy residue in the pot, requiring regular cleaning. Incense was another popular method for freshening the air, often used to mask the lingering smell of cigarette smoke, which was more prevalent in homes and public spaces at the time. But perhaps the most peculiar trend of the era was the use of decorative soaps in bathrooms. These soaps, shaped like flowers, shells, or other decorative objects, were displayed in bowls and intended solely for visual appeal. They came in a variety of colors and scents, but were strictly off-limits for actual hand washing. The do not use rule surrounding these decorative soaps highlights the emphasis on aesthetics and presentation that characterized the 80s. These soaps were seen as decorative accents, adding a touch of elegance and fragrance to the bathroom, even if they serve no practical purpose. Looking back at these trends, we can see how our approaches to cleanliness and home fragrance have evolved. Today, we have more advanced cleaning technologies, air fresheners, and scented candles that offer greater convenience and effectiveness. However, the nostalgia associated with carpet fresh, potpourri pots, and decorative soaps reminds us of a time when creating a pleasant and welcoming home environment involved a unique blend of resourcefulness and creativity. Number 12. Wooden console televisions, metal TV trays. Stepping into a typical 1980s living room was like entering a time capsule of unique furniture and technology. One of the defining features of these spaces was the ubiquitous wooden console television. These behemoths were not only a source of entertainment, but also substantial pieces of furniture, often dominating the room with their imposing presence. Their weight and bulk were legendary, earning them comparisons to naval destroyers. Alongside these massive televisions, metal TV trays played a crucial role in the 80s household. These foldable trays provided a convenient surface for enjoying meals while watching your favorite shows, transforming the living room into a makeshift dining area. Storage methods for these trays varied, with some households tucking them away under the couch or in a closet, while others proudly displayed them on dedicated storage racks, a testament to their practicality and frequent use. For those seeking the ultimate in convenience and a touch of futuristic flair, there was the clapper. This innovative device, heavily advertised on television, allowed you to control your lights and appliances with a simple clap of your hands. While the clapper became the subject of many jokes and humorous skits, it secretly held a certain appeal for many of us. The idea of controlling our surroundings with such a simple gesture seemed both futuristic and incredibly convenient. These elements of the 80s living room, the wooden console television, the metal TV trays, and the clapper, reflect a distinct era in home entertainment and technology. They represent a time when televisions were the focal point of the living room. Family meals often revolved around favorite TV shows, and the concept of controlling appliances with a clap seemed like a glimpse into the future. While these items may seem dated or even comical by today's standards, they hold a nostalgic charm for those who grew up in the 80s, evoking memories of simpler times and shared family experiences. Number 13. Brass, ceramics, and macrame. The 1980s were a time when certain decorative elements reigned supreme in the home, and brass held a prominent place among them. Brass items, from lamps and candlesticks to picture frames and figurines, were seen as symbols of elegance and sophistication. However, maintaining their gleaming appearance required a considerable amount of effort. Polishing brass was a common chore, requiring specialized cleaning products and a fair amount of elbow grease to keep tarnish at bay. Ceramic animals and figurines were another popular decorative element in 80s living rooms. These whimsical objects, often depicting animals, birds, or human figures, added a touch of personality and charm to the space. While some ceramic pieces came pre-painted, many people embraced the trend of purchasing blank white figurines and hand-painting them themselves. This DIY approach allowed for creative expression and personalization, transforming ordinary ceramic pieces into unique works of art. The living room became the ideal showcase for these hand-painted creations, proudly displayed on shelves, mantels, or coffee tables. They served as conversation starters, reflecting the homeowner's artistic talents and adding a touch of handcrafted charm to the room. The prevalence of brass and ceramic decorations in 80s homes reflects a broader trend towards personalization and DIY projects. People were eager to express their individuality and creativity through their home decor, transforming mass-produced items into unique and meaningful pieces. While these decorative trends may have fallen out of favor in subsequent decades, they hold a nostalgic appeal for those who remember the 80s. They represent a time when craftsmanship, personalization, and a touch of kitsch were celebrated in the home, creating a unique and memorable aesthetic that continues to evoke a sense of warmth and nostalgia.
Welcome to our pox party. Save room for
Number 9. Chickenpox parties. The concept of chickenpox parties might seem bizarre to modern parents, but it was a common practice in the 1970s and early 1980s. These gatherings weren't festive celebrations in the traditional sense. Rather, they were a deliberate attempt to expose children to chickenpox. The rationale behind these parties was rooted in the belief that it was better for children to contract chickenpox at a young age when the symptoms were typically milder. Parents would arrange for their healthy children to interact with a child who had already developed chickenpox, often through direct physical contact. The goal was to intentionally infect the healthy children so they could develop immunity to the virus. Some parents might even bring the virus home from an infected child and expose their own children through direct contact. While the idea of intentionally infecting children with a disease might seem alarming today, it reflected the medical understanding and societal norms of the time. There was no vaccine for chickenpox available then, and the disease was considered a common childhood illness that most children would eventually contract. By exposing their children to chickenpox at a young age, parents hoped to minimize the risk of complications and ensure that their children developed immunity before adulthood, when the disease could be more severe. Chickenpox parties were not without their risks, as some children could develop more severe cases of the illness. However, they were seen as a practical and convenient way to manage a common childhood disease in an era before vaccines were readily available. The development and widespread adoption of the chickenpox vaccine in the 1990s effectively eliminated the need for chickenpox parties. Today, most children are vaccinated against chickenpox, dramatically reducing the incidence and severity of the disease. The practice of chickenpox parties serves as a reminder of how medical practices and societal attitudes towards disease can change over time, thanks to advancements in medical science and a greater understanding of public health. Comment 1 if you enjoyed the content above. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications to follow our videos. Thank you. Number 10. Being bored. Boredom was an inevitable part of childhood in the early 1980s and before, a stark contrast to the constant stimulation and entertainment options available to children today. We didn't have smartphones or tablets to distract us during car rides, shopping trips, or doctor's appointments. Instead, we had to rely on our imaginations and find ways to entertain ourselves. Trips to the store with our parents often involved patiently waiting while they browsed the aisles. There were no smartphones to occupy our time. Instead, we might wander around, examine the merchandise, or simply daydream. Children weren't glued to screens, and the sight of a child performing a TikTok dance in a store aisle would have been unheard of. Waiting rooms at doctors' and dentists' offices were similarly devoid of digital distractions. We might have been lucky enough to find a highlights magazine, but the puzzles were often already solved by previous visitors. The soundtrack to our waiting experiences was typically elevator music, a far cry from the personalized playlists and streaming services available today. While boredom might seem like an undesirable state, it can foster creativity and resourcefulness. Without constant external stimulation, we were forced to engage our imaginations, invent games, and find ways to make our own fun. We learned to appreciate the simple things and find joy in everyday moments. The experience of boredom in the pre-digital age taught us patience, resilience, and the ability to entertain ourselves. It fostered a sense of independence and self-reliance that is sometimes lacking in today's hyper-connected world. While technology has undoubtedly enriched our lives in many ways, it's important to remember the value of unstructured time and the benefits of allowing children to experience boredom. It's in those moments of quiet contemplation and imaginative exploration that true creativity and self-discovery can flourish. Number 6. Rotary phones. Ah, the rotary phone, a relic of a bygone era that brings a wave of nostalgia for many of us. It's fascinating how drastically telephone technology has transformed over the past few decades, from the iconic rotary dial to the sleek smartphones we carry in our pockets today. Remember those clunky landlines, the ones with cords that seemed to have a life of their own? It was a common struggle to untangle that spiraled mess, a daily ritual for many households. Rotary phones also demanded a sharp memory or a trusty address book nearby. We had to meticulously dial each digit, listening to the satisfying click as the dial returned to its starting position. Today, cell phones have rendered phone books and even memorizing numbers almost obsolete. They serve as our address books, our calendars, our entertainment centers, a far cry from the simple functionality of a rotary phone. The transition from rotary to push-button phones was a significant leap forward, offering greater convenience and speed. Cordless phones further liberated us from the constraints of a physical connection, allowing us to roam freely while chatting. But the advent of cell phones revolutionized communication altogether. We can now connect with people across the globe instantly, accessing a wealth of information and services at our fingertips. It's a testament to human ingenuity and our relentless pursuit of innovation. While rotary phones may seem like ancient artifacts to younger generations, they hold a special place in the hearts of many. They represent a simpler time, a time when conversations were uninterrupted by notifications and distractions. The rotary phone reminds us of the power of human connection, the importance of slowing down, and the beauty of a bygone era. Number 7. Newspapers. Newspapers were once a cornerstone of daily life, a ubiquitous presence in most households. The familiar thud of the paper landing on the doorstep each morning signaled the start of a new day and provided a window into the world's events. The Sunday paper, in particular, held a special place in our hearts. It was a treasure trove of information, entertainment, and deals. We'd eagerly sift through the sales ads, clip coupons, and lose ourselves in the colorful world of the comics section. It was a ritual that brought families together and provided hours of leisurely enjoyment. For many kids, a paper route offered a first taste of independence and responsibility. Being a paperboy or papergirl was a coveted job, providing a sense of accomplishment and a bit of extra spending money. The sight of kids on bikes, expertly tossing newspapers onto porches, was a familiar sight in neighborhoods across the country. Today, the newspaper industry faces unprecedented challenges in the digital age. The rise of online news sources and social media has disrupted traditional media consumption habits, leading to a decline in print readership and the closure of many newspapers. While some households still subscribe to print newspapers, the experience is not as universal as it once was. The nostalgia surrounding newspapers evokes a sense of community and connection. It reminds us of a time when information was curated and delivered in a tangible format, fostering a sense of shared experience. While the future of print newspapers remains uncertain, their legacy as a powerful medium of information and entertainment is undeniable. The rustle of the pages, the smell of ink, and the anticipation of discovering new stories within its folds are all part of a cherished memory for many. Number 8. The Space Shuttle. The 1980s were a time of immense excitement and wonder surrounding space exploration, particularly the Space Shuttle program. For countless children, the dream of journeying into space aboard the iconic shuttle was a powerful aspiration. The idea of soaring through the cosmos, experiencing weightlessness, and gazing back at Earth from orbit captivated our imaginations. This dream felt even more attainable when Krista McAuliffe, the first teacher in space, was selected to join a shuttle mission. Her presence on the Challenger mission symbolized the possibility of space travel becoming more accessible to ordinary people, inspiring a new generation of aspiring astronauts and scientists. However, the tragic Challenger disaster in 1986 shattered our sense of invincibility and cast a shadow over the space program. The loss of the crew, including McAuliffe, was a profound shock that left a lasting impact on the nation and the world. The dream of space travel suddenly felt more distant and dangerous. The Space Shuttle program continued for several more decades, achieving remarkable feats of scientific discovery and technological advancement. However, the program eventually came to an end in 2011, marking the retirement of the iconic space shuttles. While the dream of routine space travel for ordinary citizens hasn't yet materialized, the legacy of the Space Shuttle program continues to inspire. The advancements made during those years paved the way for new possibilities in space exploration, including the development of commercial spaceflight and renewed efforts to send humans to Mars. The space era holds a special place in our collective memory, a testament to human ambition, resilience, and the enduring allure of the cosmos. The dream of space travel may have been tempered by tragedy, but it continues to burn brightly in the hearts of many, a reminder that the boundaries of human exploration are limitless.
Some things weren't just cool, they were unforgettable. Which of these 80s luxuries did you dream of most? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this trip down memory lane brought back a smile, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss what's next. Thanks for watching.